Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome back. It's very nice to see you again, both online and offline. Let me introduce myself once again. My name is Hemi Kim, and I have the honor and pleasure of serving as your MC today. Well, it's very nice to meet you all, both online and offline, and thank you so much for joining us. Well, I hope you enjoyed your lunch break. So without further ado, let us begin session 1 of the Global Forum commemorating the 75th anniversary of the founding of Yeungnam University, titled The Role of Education for the Co-Prosperity in the Global Community. And as you already know, session 1 will be conducted under the theme of the educational paradigm shift according to the changes in the global milieu. And it will be chaired by the Honorable Dr. Jick, Senior Advisor of Yulchon LLC, who also assumed the position of former Minister of Trade, Industry and Energy of the Republic of Korea. So without further ado, let me hand over the microphone to our distinguished chair. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Yoon with a big round of applause.
예, 감사합니다.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Sang-chul. I will be chairing session number 1. I would like to first start off by congratulating the 75th anniversary of Yeungnam University. Yeungnam University is a university that is located in my hometown. And I think Yeungnam University is at the same time the best prestigious university in the southern part of Korea. I also want to thank President Choi Wei-chul of Yeungnam University, and also I send my words of congratulations to all the staff members of Yeungnam University and also students. The title of session number 1 is Educational Paradigm Shift according to the changes in the global environment. When the global environment changes, the way we educate our children should also change. And of course, everything must change accordingly. Especially with the globalization accelerating, many changes are being witnessed. We are witnessing the changes brought about by the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and at the same time, I think education was focused on compulsory education, the basic education provided for all people. However, I think the focus is shifting to lifelong learning. As we are celebrating the age of centenarians, I think lifelong learning is becoming more and more important. We also have guests from Cambodia. We have representatives of Congress from Cambodia, and I think leadership education and the success stories in education can be shared with other countries as well. In this session, we are going to talk about these global environmental changes and what kind of educational paradigm shift is needed according to such changes. I would like to first invite President Sung-chul, former president of KAIST, for his keynote speech. He will be talking about the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the innovation in the field of education.
Well, thank you so much for kind introduction, and thank you so much for invitation to this wonderful global forums. Let me first congratulate the 75th anniversary of Yeungnam University, and I sincerely wish the great progress and prosperity of Yeungnam University in the coming years under the wonderful leadership of President Wei-chul. What I'm going to discuss today is on education reformation of a university in the era of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. We are in a period of great transformation caused mainly by the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Chairman Klaus Schwab, who first coined the term Fourth Industrial Revolution, has described the breadth, depth, and speed of revolution will be unprecedented in history. So in the coming years, we will encounter unprecedented exponential changes in the human society caused by three mega trends of fourth industrial revolution. The first mega trend is hyperconnectivity. More than 50% of the world population is connected through smartphones and internet. Also, there are more than 50 billion devices connected via IoTs. So in the coming years, number of mobile users and IoTs are expected to exponentially increase. So within 30 years, most of people and electric devices in the world will be connected and communicated at the velocity of light. So we live in a hyper-connected society characterized by collective intelligence, collaboration through crowdsourcing, and sharing economies. In such a hyper-connected society, I strongly believe that hybrid university, integrating virtual university with the online education into the traditional physical university, become the new normal of our future universities. Second mega trend is a super intelligence, realized via rapid progress of AI due to the technology of deep learning, brain science, and big data, together with the advance in computer hardware. We human beings were so shocked by the fact that Google developed AI, namely AlphaGo, as you know, has achieved landslide victories against human Go champions. With such a rapid development of AI, as futurist Ray Kurzweil has predicted, we might face singularity point within 30 years when AI surpasses human intelligence. As we all witness, AI is already everywhere. AI is enabler of diverse industries, such as speech processing, image processing, natural language processing, big data mining, and you name it. Also, AI is assisting various professional jobs. In the near future, AI robots, which I call robo-sapiences, will be omnipresent. Here is a few examples of AI robot. AI guide robot, AI chatbot, chatting and conversing with the human beings, AI golfer, which can play hole-in-one, as demonstrated in this video clip. You might be surprised to make the hole-in-one. So you never compete with the AI golfer. And AI gymnast, who can play 360 degrees tumbling. You will encounter the variety of AI robots. Therefore, we have to think seriously about the identity of human beings. We Homo sapiens will not be able to compete with the Robo sapiens with regard to memory, information process and calculation, functional and physical abilities. So we should further cultivate irreversible merits of a human being, such as creativity, empathy, insight, and wisdom. Then we have to seek symbiosis between Homo sapiens and Robo sapienses. Third megatrend is a meta-convergence. New findings and inventions will be mostly occur through interdisciplinary and cross-disciplinary approaches, in particular, NB convergence, standing for nanotechnology, biotechnology, information technology, and cognitive science. Moreover, we live in society where a physical, cyber, and biological systems are conjoined by sensing, communication, computation, and control. So we live, namely, in the metaverse world. Considering these mega trends of the first industrial revolution, the most crucial issue in higher education is what kind of manpower should the university foster in the 21st century? My answer for that is to foster so-called C-cube talent, equipped with the creativity that can solve the problems with innovative ideas via collaboration, challenging mind that can cope with the unsolved question in ways that have not been tried before, and caring mind with an attitude of inclusiveness and ethical responsibility. To foster this kind of C-cube talent, educational reformation of a university is urgent and imperative. First of all, I would like to draw your attention to the whole brain education by strengthening science and engineering education. That is for training your left brain, together with the diverse education of humanities, social sciences, and art for training right brain. The first step to implement the whole brain education is to break down the thick barriers of a department-centered education. This is a model for non-department education system, which I have implemented at DGIS. It's nearby your side, as a founding president of a university. For the first 3 years, students are educated to build a solid background in basic science and engineering and diverse knowledge of humanities and social science. When students become senior, they take the customized education track depending on their future career paths. This non-department educational system is also implemented at KAIST in addition to department educational systems. It should be mentioned that universities need to reform teaching and learning methodology. We have to pay attention to what John Dewey said. If we teach today's students as we taught yesterday, we rob them of tomorrow. Most universities in Korea have relied on one-sided passive education, which is ineffective in fostering creative talent of critical thinking. I think blended education, adopting flipped learning class, which is composed of online video learning and offline discussion-based learning, is very effective to enhance the creativity of students. In offline discussion class, professor's role should be changed as a facilitator, moderator, and mentor for students during the discussions. Now, I'd like to shift the gear a little bit to mention the importance of entrepreneurial education. University in the era of the first industrial revolution should serve not only as a cradle of a new knowledge generation, but also hub for research, development, and business, namely R&D to create value-added knowledge. University must strengthen entrepreneurial education in their curricula. So for entrepreneurial education, KAIST implement so-called triple helix education model, which effectively integrates education, research, and technology commercialization. The class takes on research topics that can address on-site issues which accompany experience, and R&D results immediately lead to commercialization. So this video clip shows the class with a triple helix education, which solves the issues in automatic distribution system for semiconductor companies. So finally, I'd like to stress the ethical education for caring mind is so important in the society of first industrial revolution, because we expect a smart digital world which will bring utopia to the human being. However, we are now facing the dark side of digital world caused by digital disparity, cyber attacks, unethical application of AI such as killer robot, which will bring about chaotic dystopia. So we have to put tremendous efforts into the ethical education for caring mind, which include social responsibility to alleviate digital disparity and ethics in manipulating big data and AI. So to conclude my speech today, is the first industrial revolution called for educational reformation for university to nurture new talent equipped with creativity, challenge speed, and caring mind. Universities that are ready to embrace a change and make full use of opportunities created by 21st century megatrend will enjoy a brighter future. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, President Shen, for that keynote speech. Moving on, we are going to listen to 3 presentations, and then we are going to have a discussion session afterwards. I would like to now invite Dr. Han Kyung-woo, Secretary General of Korea National Commission for UNESCO. And his presentation is titled The Transformation of Education Proposed by UNESCO's Futures of Education Report. Mr. Han, please go ahead. Good afternoon. I am Han Kyung-woo, Secretary General of the Korean National Commission for UNESCO. Since the 1970s, whenever there was a great social transformation, UNESCO has suggested the direction of future education and published reports that call for a paradigm shift. Last November, the 3rd report, titled Reimagining Our Future Together, A New Social Contract for Education, aka the Futures of Education Report, was published. I would like to talk about the direction of educational transformation proposed by this report and the changing role of higher education. What does it mean to perceive education as a social contract? It means that education is based on a widespread implicit agreement among members of society about the public value and purpose of education. Let's first think about the existing social contract for education. Today's school-centered education system is a product of the development of the modern nation state and the Industrial Revolution. School teaches many things, but in addition to being able to read, write, and count, they teach that you must go to school even if it rains or snows or even if you're sick, and to stand in line or sit in an upright position when taking part in classes or events. Remember, old school buildings always had clocks? Raising citizens and workers who obeyed time and rules was important for the development of the country and society. Do you remember the story of Pinocchio, the main character of a fairy tale, who didn't want to go to school and went through all sorts of trouble after skipping class? Since the book Pinocchio was published in 1883, it can be said that it was during those days that the modern school system was completed. Usually, people think that the lesson from Pinocchio's story is not to lie, but the message that runs through the entire story is that to be a good child, you have to go to school, or literally, you have to study and work to become a person. Maybe this is the question of Korean teacher Park Hyun-hee. So it can be said that this is a story that shows education as a social contract at the time. But I think we have no choice but to sympathize with Pinocchio, who didn't want to go to school. Was it not natural for Pinocchio to dislike a school where one teacher taught the same thing to a large number of students, controlled with strict discipline, and students had to follow a set timetable? In view of education as a social contract, that is, an implicit agreement among members of society to cooperate for the common good, guaranteeing the right to education by expanding compulsory education was the social contract of education. The international community has been pushing for the expansion of compulsory education and school education and narrowing the gender gap in admission rates. But the reality is that the realization of the universal right to education has not yet been achieved. In the meantime, there is a tendency to regard standardized and accreditable school education as superior, and interest in various traditional learning, namely non-formal and informal education that is learned from places other than schools, such as nature, tradition, and community, has decreased. As a result, the content of education has become less relevant to the real lives of learners, and it's failing to promote cooperation and solidarity, creativity, and curiosity. Therefore, UNESCO's report on the futures of education states that the current education system, based on the paradigm of economic growth, does not favor sustainability, solidarity, and mutual reliance and care between humans and with nature, and it rather prioritizes short term convenience, personal success, and national competition. The Futures of Education report, looking to the future beyond 2050, proposes to pursue a new social contract for education, setting out two guiding principles. The first guiding principle is to ensure the right to quality education throughout life. The right to education needs to be expanded to go beyond recognizing children and young people's right to be educated in school at school age. And it should encompass education for people of all ages so that they can receive quality education in all spaces of their lives. In order to guarantee the complete right to education, the educational paradigm must be actively extended beyond the school education system. UNESCO is constantly advocating for the realization of a learning society. Another guiding principle is strengthening the concept of education as a public endeavor and a common good. The common good is a somewhat unfamiliar concept. Since education is not for teachers and students only, but a common social experience through which members of society connects with the world, all members of society should participate in the public discussion about education and choose and implement education together. This is what education as common good means. Let us now turn to the field of higher education. The Futures of Education report identifies research, education, and social service as the three core functions of universities, and it places great expectations on the role of higher education in future education innovation. It also emphasizes several times that higher education can play a pivotal role in accessing, creating, and sharing the vast information, knowledge, and wisdom that humanity has. Especially, the report suggests reinforcing the role of higher education in terms of lifelong learning and calls for more active consideration of linking it with primary and secondary education and non traditional educational pathways. For the realization of lifelong learning, all stages of education must be closely connected, and a paradigm shift is needed to seek the future development of higher education with an approach to lifelong learning, the report says. Lastly, I would like to talk about the significance of the Futures of Education report for the transformation of higher education in Korea. The transformation of higher education in Korea has already begun. For example, through the high school credit system, which will be introduced to domestic high schools from 2025, the connection with universities is expected to be activated in the process of opening various subjects that students want to learn. I think that cooperation between elementary and secondary education facilities and universities through the high school credit system will be a fresh attempt by higher education institutions to reimagine education and strengthen its role as a common good. In addition, the role of universities in providing lifelong education for community members is increasingly being strengthened. I often say you should build a public library together with a bath or a spa. If the library had not only books but also a bathhouse, cafes, and restaurants and space for various activities, wouldn't it be possible for more people, families, women, and children to come to the library to spend time? Although universities are already making various efforts, I hope that you will continue to take on more innovative challenges so that the university can become more open to the local community and become a driving force for regional development through cooperation. More and more people are looking for advanced learning opportunities after graduating from college. It is time to actively seek a flexible admission path that allows universities to embrace learners who have gone through a variety of learning paths. Also, to meet the expectations and aspirations of these non traditional students in higher education, the content and methods of education should also change. To this end, to borrow the expressions from the Futures of Education report once again, the knowledge and experience provided by universities should promote authenticity and relevance so that the content of education is not far away from the real world we live in, and we will have to intensify our efforts to prevent this divergence. With societies changing at an ever increasing rate, if universities fail to meet students' needs for cutting edge knowledge and expertise, their sustainability will be threatened. The consensus that today's education system needs to be reformed has long been formed, but it is true that it has not led to practical implementation. Now it's time to transform education for a sustainable future. In June 2022, the UNESCO Conference on Educational Transformation will be held, and the UN General Assembly on Educational Change will be held in September, and various projects promoted by the Korean Commission for UNESCO will be held. So I'd like to ask you for your continued support and interest. Thank you.
다음은
Thank you very much. And now let me invite Dr. Ryu Jungwoo, Chancellor of the Penn State University, Du Bois. And Dr. Yu's presentation will also be delivered via video.
My name is Jungwoo Liu. I am the Chancellor and Chief Academic Officer at Penn State Du Bois. Our campus is in the north central region of Pennsylvania, known for its beautiful natural surroundings and pressed metal industries. We prepare leaders through the quality and resources of a large university in a small college setting. We are small, but mighty. As the pandemic rages worldwide, it's now more crucial than ever for educators to be kind and compassionate. Since the spring of 2020, all of us in higher education have been scrambling to survive many challenges associated with COVID-19. While struggling to keep teaching and learning happening on our campuses, we cannot help but notice what matters the most is not the materialistic, but emotional resources. Yes, it's essential to provide facilities and technologies to support our students in overcoming the physical challenges the viruses pose. We need software to enable our remote teaching. Webcams are indispensable to promoting richer interactions online. Masks and hand sanitizers are essential. However, just like anything else in education, what makes these tools effective is how people use them. An online class can be as exhilarating and interactive as its in person counterpart if the participants actively engage in course content and activities. On the other hand, residential instruction could be extremely dry with very few opportunities for active learning. Regardless of the circumstances, we have opportunities to make an enormous difference in the lives of our students, both inside and outside classrooms. During the pandemic, what became clearer was that students wanted more care and a sense of belonging from their teachers and campus staff. This phenomenon corroborates with the research outcomes already available today. Based on Maslow's hierarchy, love and belonging are at the very core of human needs. How do we promote more care and a sense of belonging in the classroom? I believe mindfulness and compassion fulfill these emotional necessities. Mindfulness is our ability to focus on the present. We all have the potential to think twice regarding an action we're about to take and its consequences. Before pushing that send button, we all need to take a moment, breathe, and think about how we'll make that student feel on the receiving side. You could be a hero to the student by being kind and understanding, or your email could be the last straw that makes the student drop out of school altogether. Empathy is the ability to put oneself in someone else's position. Compassion is mindful empathy because it goes beyond just commiserating, but taking concrete actions to help someone. Researchers are finding that there's a strong correlation between mindfulness, compassion, and belonging. Research shows that a mindful and compassionate person is more aware of potential actions that could be detrimental to developing a sense of belonging. A teacher wouldn't call out a student and say that you are not good at math if she is mindful. On the receiving side, students need to be strong and resilient to harsh comments and treatment to transform the negative actions into positive energy, to try even harder to overcome and even transcend these biases. According to the latest research, mindfulness and compassion help students develop resilience. Therefore, we all must strive to make the classroom experience as engaging as possible by demonstrating more mindfulness and compassion to build a greater sense of belonging and inclusion. As higher education institutions, we are in the business of producing the leaders of tomorrow for our global community. When students experience mindfulness and compassion firsthand in the classroom, they develop a tangible understanding of their positive effects on themselves and the people around them. They'll also be more likely to start practicing mindfulness and compassion in their own lives. More mindful and compassionate leaders will undoubtedly change our world for the better, leading to co-prosperity of humanity in the global community, which happens to be the theme of this conference. Are you ready to be more mindful and compassionate today? Your act of mindfulness and compassion may appear to be insignificant, but it could have a butterfly effect and transform our world.
멀리 유펜에서 우리
Well, thank you very much. So that was the Chancellor Ryu from Penn State. So all the way from Penn State. So thank you very much for the presentation.
Okay, the last presentation is a presentation by His Excellency Suos Yara, Chairman of the Commission of Foreign Affairs of the National Assembly of the Kingdom of Cambodia. Yeungnam University has the Semal Graduate School, and we have many Cambodian students who are studying at Yeungnam University. So I hope that global leadership education can be expanded further between the two countries. I would like to now invite His Excellency Suos Yara.
Excellencies, professors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Professor Sung-chul, President of the Yeungnam University, for kindly inviting me to speak at this global forum on the role of education for the prosperity and the global community, celebrating the 75th anniversary of Yeungnam University. I'd like to take this opportunity to commend the university for this remarkable achievement and contribution to the progress and prosperity of humanity for the last 75 years. Cambodia and the Republic of Korea established diplomatic relations in 1997 after the official visit by Samdech Techo Prime Minister Hun Sen to the country in 1996. Although she started a bit late, the bilateral relationship of both countries are getting stronger and more comprehensive, which is manifested most strongly by the fact that despite the COVID-19 pandemic, the flight connection between the Cambodia and South Korea have not stopped. More than 50,000 Cambodians work in Korea, and more than 8,000 Cambodians married Korean. So we can say that Cambodia and the Republic of Korea are the in-law country. Furthermore, Cambodia-Korea Free Trade Agreement, which was signed last year, provide more opportunity for both countries to enhance cooperation in trade, investment, economy, and infrastructure. Excellencies, professors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, our world is changing so rapidly. While there are emerging opportunities, there are also great challenges that put multilateralism and international orders at stake. The devastating impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change intensifying great power rivalry, the war in Ukraine, and the armed conflict in other regions of the world are strengthening global peace and progress and putting millions of affected people in poverty. We need a collective efforts and spirit of brotherhood to address these challenges to avoid the catastrophe for humanity. Therefore, this global forum is timely and highly relevant. Why does education matter for prosperity in the global community? Education provides so many benefits to individuals, persons, society, the economy, and the global community. Among them are knowledge creation, problem-solving skill, innovation, technological and scientific progress, employment opportunity, economic advancement, prosperity, and life satisfaction. Moreover, education empowers reasoning and breeds wisdom, and wisdom is a fundamental for peace. The Cambodian government and the government of the Republic of Korea consider education one of the priority areas of our bilateral cooperation. The government and the University of Korea have assisted Cambodia in her effort to develop human resources, technological skill, and capacity by offering scholarship and technical training to the Cambodian students. Yeungnam University, in particular, has supported Cambodian development by offering scholarship to the Cambodian students to pursue postgraduate education and supporting Semal development project in Cambodia. 45 Cambodian students have studied under the scholarship at the university in different fields, including Semal theory and practice, public policies, and sustainable development. This is a practical example for enhancing educational cooperation to promote co-prosperity for the global community. Cambodia also promotes sustainable and inclusive rural development through the Daicho 100 Villages initiative by drawing lessons and best practices from different rural development models, including Simalundong. The Daicho 100 Village concept was adopted in the resolution by the 52 countries attended the 11th Asia-Europe Parliamentary Partnership, known as ASEP 11 meeting, was held in Phnom Penh virtually in last November 2021. We hope that the initiative will be widely implemented by governments and put into their action plan for the benefit of their respective peoples. In concluding my remarks, I firmly believe that enhancing educational cooperation between our in-law country, Cambodia and the Republic of Korea, will enable us to play a greater role in promoting global peace, sustainable development, and prosperity through connecting wisdom, connecting knowledge, and connecting action. Thank you very much. 감사합니다.
All right. And now, with that, we have listened to one keynote speech and 3 presentations. And now, we are nearing the conclusion of the session, but then before then, we have about 20 minutes left. So I shall now use that time for discussion. Now then, if I may very briefly sum up the 4 presentations, then President Shin has talked about something that I found to be very impressive, and that is about the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and especially about how we are going to do the teaching and learning. And then he talked about the C cube, so the C cube talent. And I would say that that actually is the conclusion, the main message. So if we can indeed do that, then I believe that we will be able to reform our university education, and in doing so, we'll be able to develop the type of talent or the human power that are necessary and befitting the Fourth Industrial Revolution as well as the 21st century. And he was followed by Secretary General Han Kyung-gu of the Korean National Commission for UNESCO. And he talked about how we can change the lifelong education into more of a quality education. For that, we need more public funding as well as public participation. So we need to make sure that we also have the kind of social contract that will enable such public funding and public participation, so that there would be greater participation or engagement in education in the form of lifelong learning and quality education. And he was followed by Chancellor Ryu Jungwoo of Penn State University, Du Bois. And he talked about the need for mindfulness. And he also talked about a sense of belonging and inclusion. So how we need to nurture such traits in leadership So I would say that that is also highly relevant to the type of leadership that we need for Semaul movement. And then he was followed by Chairman Yara, and he talked about the cooperation between Korea and Cambodia, and also the teaching of Semaul spirit in Cambodia, and also how we need further cooperation, collaboration, and how we need to further develop such bilateral cooperation. So we have listened to one keynote speech and 3 presentations with these messages, and now based on that, I would like to have a brief but constructive discussion. Well, then, first to President Shin, may I ask a question? As you all know, and especially because we are here to discuss university education. Now, as the Minister of Trade, Commerce, and Industry, now I was in the position of utilizing talent, and then now I had also felt some, let's say, need for improvement. But then now, more recently, I read somewhere that the non-degree school, which is the École 42, which is run in Paris, so no teachers and no campus and no textbooks. And their motto is knowledge. Information is out there like the sea. So knowledge and information are abundant like the sea, and what is important is for me to collect the information, to concretize that information for myself. So it's about learning. It's not about teaching anymore. And that was the emphasis, and also that is what is being run by Echo 42. And indeed, it has produced many software developers, and now they are working in world renowned IT companies. So then, what President Shin has mentioned, C Cube. So I would say that the C Cube talent is quite related or quite similar to this concept. And I wonder whether we can also apply this model in Korea. May I elicit your feedback to this? Well, thank you very much for the very pertinent and important question. And yes, for all the presidents of universities and also for all the education innovators, I would say that is actually the kind of direction that we should be all headed to. So today we are, still based on rote learning or, learning by memory, but then that is meaningless because all you need to do is do some search on Google. But then what is important is how you're going to synthesize that information. And then based on that, you need to have your own creative ideas. So I think that is the most important thing today. So we have the fourth industrial revolution, and then I talked about the 3 mega trends, and then I also talked about the 3 cube talent that we need in the 21st century. And because the fourth industrial revolution, that is what we are undergoing now. So the first, second, and the third industrial revolutions. Now it was after the revolutions that we looked at the society, and then the historians named them later on the first, second, and the third industrial revolutions. But then the fourth industrial revolution, that was coined by Mr. Schwab, and then we are actually undergoing it now. So I believe that it's also up to us to how to develop this. Now then, in this case, the challenging spirit, that is very important because this is a path that was not taken before. And then also I talked about the robot sapiens. And the robot sapiens memory and computing power are really no comparison to us. So then the virtues or the talent that we need to have is creativity, and then also empathy and insight, wisdom. So these are the talents or these are the traits that we need to have, that we need to further develop, and they are not to be found in textbooks. So that is something that you can develop by having interactions with the teacher or the professor or the facilitator and the students. And of course, there are many different innovative initiatives. So what you talked about, and then there's also the Minerva that does without any physical campus. So in the future, Peter Drucker, he also mentioned that by 2030, like offline campuses would belong to the museum. So perhaps that will not be entirely true, but still, many universities might do away from physical university, or they might decide to have a combination or something like a blended university where the online and the offline universities will be combined. So then what Minister Yoon has asked about. So for us to have that kind of innovative change, then of course there are many professors present here, but then what we need to do is to see changes from professors first. So professors have to change first. So for us to not just unilaterally deliver knowledge, because students would be better at learning knowledge. So for the professors, what we need to do is to stoke discussion, to trigger discussion, to serve as a mentor, to serve as a moderator, and then to draw out ideas from the students. So I think that would be the role that will be left to the professor. So now, on one hand, the fourth industrial revolution could be a crisis to us because we have so far only been playing catch up. But then on the other hand, this is the type of revolution that was not seen before. So it is also a good opportunity for us to take the leadership. So along the way, professors' teaching method would be very important, meaning that we have to promote more discussion. In other words, to develop critical thinking among the students. So I would say that that is the most important thing. And then also the universities who can take the initiative in this endeavor will be the leading universities.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, we do not have the three presenters offline, so if we had the presenters offline, we could have more discussions, but the three presenters shared their presentation as a video message. But I think we still have many people on the floor and also many students. So I think we can entertain questions from the floor. I've been working at the Korean government for 34 years, and I served as the Minister of Trade before. And I think Mr. Shin has been an education leader in Korea, so I think we can answer questions not limited to the fourth industrial revolution. Especially, we can talk about leadership and the 새마을 community movements, which was about nurturing grassroots leadership. And I think it was mentioned by one of the presenters, but I think what is important for national development and social development is leadership. Without leadership, then we will lose direction and we won't be able to derive a good outcome. In this context, I think many non-Korean students studying at Yeungnam University here would be curious to learn about the experiences of the Republic of Korea. So I think as we have some time left, I think we can receive two questions from the floor. So among the students on the floor, do you have any questions? I think other presenters of other sessions could also answer the questions from the students. So any question?
Thank you. I'm sorry, my name is Selamat Supriyadi. I'm from Indonesia. And my question is, while the developed country are happy with the Industrial Revolution 4.0, like artificial intelligence, robot, 3D printer, and others, developing countries are struggling to make internet and computer accessible in the area or the remote area. So we have contradiction here. I mean that in developed country, they are happy with Revolution 4.0, but just in another country like the developing country, they are struggling to make internet and computer accessible in rural area and remote area. And the question is, how is the Revolution 4.0 implemented in the developing country with the limited technology? Unfortunately, Revolution Industry 4.0 often as a threat, as a problem, because many jobs will be lost when the Revolution Industry 4.0 is applied. And what is solution do you offer to poor country or developing country as the bad effect for Revolution 4.0? And second question, for some countries like maybe Indonesia, labor or people is an asset to earn foreign exchange. And what do you future predict about the country that use the people, use the labor as foreign exchange when Revolutionary 4.0 applied in whole of life? Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum. Oh, sorry. 감사합니다.
Well, I understand your question two ways. One is how developing country address the fourth industrial revolution, because we need a lot of facilities for hyperconnectivity. So you need the internet, smartphone, something, all those things. And the second question is that what's the way to compensate losing the job? Okay, because there are a lot of job will be lost by automation and robo sapiens and blah blah blah. Then how is job lost is saved people for the people? 우리 통역 있죠? 제가 이제 대답을.
I think we have simultaneous interpreters, so I would like to answer in Korean. I think this is a complicated issue, and that is why today's discussion is very important. Co-prosperity is one of the key terms of this global forum. So the two questions that the student raised are the important issues for developing countries. In the case of developed countries like Korea, we have not many troubles in applying the fourth industrial revolution trends. However, as he said, developing countries may be in a different situation. And just as former Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said, we were able to realize that the entire global community is living in one village. Everyone and every nation is connected and we share the same destiny. So we cannot be selfish about our own country only. The same applies to the United States and China. We should think about the global community and we should work to respond to global challenges together as we share the destiny. And in this context, I believe that Yeungnam University will become a very important university because Yeungnam University is actively cooperating with developing countries, teaching future leaders of developing countries. You would want to become leaders of your respective countries, right? Yes, Yeungnam University is playing a role in sharing Korea's experience with students from developing countries.
The half century. So Korea might be a big reference, benchmarking country for your country. So 그래서 오늘
So this concept of co-prosperity is very important, and developed countries like Korea should cooperate further with developing countries. And regarding your second question about the possibility of jobs disappearing due to the fourth industrial revolution, it is true that there are many reports projecting job loss, and there are even projections that 50% of all jobs will be gone in 20 years. For example, secretaries will be gone, and also professional golfers may lose their jobs because of AI golfers. And AI cookers, AI doctors will also appear. In this situation, manual repeated jobs or repetitive jobs will be replaced by AI robots. So moving forward, education should focus on cultivating the strength of human beings, which are creativity, wisdom, insight, and sympathy, and so on. So even if this person is a manual worker, if this person has empathy for others, he will be able to survive. For example, this automated vehicles, do you think that automated vehicles will be used by everyone? Wealthy people will still want human drivers. But let's say drivers have this high level of service with empathy, then this driver will be able to survive in this era of automated vehicle. So I think when unmanned vehicles are developed and automated driving uh, becomes normal, many drivers will lose their job. But drivers with empathy and these human skills will survive, and he will even earn bigger income. And I think this is same for developing countries and developed countries alike. Think about San Francisco or Silicon Valley. There are many homeless people on streets. And some of these homeless people are former CEOs of high-tech companies. Because they missed out on the fast changes, they lost their job and they became homeless like that. So the pace of change is very fast. And I think it is the role of education to educate our people to prepare for that changes. That's my answer. Okay, I think we can entertain just one more question.
One thing, a couple of things actually to his comments on your question. Regarding, I think one of his question is about inequity in information and communication technology. So that is very serious issue, really. So therefore, when we work together, we have role of developed countries and role of developing countries. First of all, developed countries, when they aid developing countries, they have to support more ICT infrastructure area so that the developing countries can use advanced information technologies to develop their talents or new business models and everything. And developing countries, as I said in the class, I emphasize the government officials of the developing countries understanding the importance of ICT. So when you have a budget, try to spend more budget for the ICT infrastructure development and education on ICT. So then those young people are very brilliant. Whenever you teach them some of the basic technologies, they create a lot of different business models and a lot of different things. So developed countries spend more aid for ICT infrastructures for developing countries. And developing countries, particularly the government officials, they have to focus more on ICT infrastructure as well as ICT education. And then I think we can reduce the inequity in information and communications technology between developing countries and developed countries. And another issue, losing jobs because of adopting information technologies. That is a very serious issue. So obviously we can create more job by using ICTs, but frankly speaking, we'll lose more jobs than creating jobs. That is the fact, right? So then when we develop our ICTs, important thing is how we develop our ICTs. So development of ICT should be beneficial for all the people in the world, not just for some companies or some groups of people. That is very important. So not only we have to focus on development of ICTs, but also we have to think how we develop ICTs for all human beings. So therefore, I suggest that when we develop ICTs, we have some kind of community consisting with the students and the faculty members and businessmen and the politicians and sociologists, everybody participate there. And they have to see the future of ICT development so that the results may go to all the different people in the world so that they can have equal benefit. So otherwise, we don't know in which way the ICT development goes. So as he mentioned, if the AI might be developed in the future very dramatic way, and then the AI becomes just like the human being. They may have even emotion and the feeling and empathy and everything. And then the AI may control the human being. And then if we have such a situation, it's very dilemma, what we have to do, what human being should do in that kind of situation. Therefore, important thing is we have to develop ICT. That is obvious. We have to have a lot of different the benefits from the development of ICT, but we have to have some kind of consensus in the direction of ICT development. So the basic thing is how everybody can receive a benefit from the ICT development rather than it goes to just the companies. Companies always love to use or utilize ICTs because rather than using human labor, they can use ICTs. Obviously, they can reduce a lot of cost, okay? But as a result, a lot of people may lose their jobs. So that's, I just want to add to answer to your question. And since we don't have enough time, I think I have to stop here. If you have further questions, we'll have more discussions later on. Thank you very much for listening.
감사합니다. 자,
Thank you very much. I think due to time constraints, we should wrap it up here. But lastly, I would like to add that even though we worry about the loss of jobs due to fourth industrial revolution, but all these sensors and all these AI functionalities are created by human beings. I don't think jobs will disappear, but employment may decrease because these human resources who are not able to serve the changing roles will lose their jobs. So I think education should serve the role of preparing them to have the skills for the era of the fourth industrial revolution. Those jobs of the fourth industrial revolution and the talents who have that skills, we have to think about how to nurture these talents. And I think that is the role of universities and the role of education. And this is something that the entire society should think about. We should not be afraid of the fourth industrial revolution, but rather we have to be proactive in our stance in preparing for the changes. So with this, I would like to conclude session one. Thank you very much for your participation.
One of the Global Forum commemorating the 75th anniversary of the founding of Yeungnam University, titled The Educational Paradigm Shift According to the Changes in the Global Milieu. Well, we would like to sincerely thank our outstanding chair, Dr. Jick, as well as all of our presenters and panelists, including Dr. Sung-chul. So ladies and gentlemen, please give them another round of big applause. Now we're going to take a short coffee break, and session 2 will commence at 2:50 p.m. on the dot, Korea Standard Time. So please enjoy your break and come back to your seats on time.